I'm not a big fan of working out. Never done it. And I told them, I was like, I just want to do upper body stuff. And they go, all right, well, how about we just do legs every day? That's all it is legs. I think it's a huge conspiracy with trainers that you never actually do your upper body. And when you are doing it, I asked him, I go, is this upper body? He goes, yeah. I go, yeah, because I'm bending down quite a bit. What I eat that's the main problem. I eat like a child. It's not good. He goes, let's go through like what you had for breakfast, or your whole day of eating. He goes, let's go through yesterday. And in my head, I'm like, well, yesterday's not a good day. Let's pick another day. He goes, go through yesterday. I go, all right. I had donuts in the morning. And he goes, all right. Was it like they were just out or something? I go, no, I drove to it. I drove to it, and he's like, is it on your way? I go, nope, I was late to where I was going because of it. He goes, what about late night snacking? And I was like, well, I had Sour Patch Kids last night. He goes, did you watch a movie? I go, no, just regular TV. And ate only, he's like, the little kid bag? I go, no, it was a bag. It was a bag of them. If you saw without a label and someone said, hand me that bag, they wouldn't be confused on what you were asking.
Oh, man. How many of us can, relate to Nate right there? You're like, at some point, you're like, the working out part. Yeah, let me hear you. Man, I tell you what. Or maybe, the whole donut thing or, just late night snacks. I think it's so relatable. And this weekend, we're going to be talking about how, little things we can actually do to actually create some pretty big results in our lives. And so excited for you to be here today. Excited to talk about this. We're going to get very, very practical today. And we're going to talk about, look at some things God says about the future you as well. So, man, welcome to Crosspoint, and let's make some noise for those tuning in online this weekend and the online space across our city, state, nation, world. Man, so excited to have you with us this weekend. And my name's Curt. If you're here for the first time, you've come at a really good time because we're in week 2 of the series Future You, and we just think this is applicable to all of us. And if you missed week 1, you can go back to our watch page, check out the first week of this, and just a quick little recap. We're basically talking about how right now, in reality, there's the you now, and we're all on this journey toward the future you. And every single day, we're making decisions that will dictate, the future you that you become. And so we're asking this kind of pivotal question, how do I get from the you now to the future you? With all of our hopes, our dreams, and of course, God, designed you with certain strengths and gifts. And so, we're talking about those. And, many of us, we walk around every single day, and we have a lot of ideas about who we want to become, and, the kind of man, the kind of woman, the kind of student we want to be, the kind of, parent or the kind of son or daughter that we want to be, the kind of employee or leader. And, sometimes we just think that, somehow the person we want to become will just magically happen. And the reality is this is kind of what we're digging into this weekend. You will never become the man or the woman or the student that you want to be on accident. Right? There's actually a lot of things that you and I can do as we partner with God to become the person God created us to be. And so this great writer of wisdom in the Old Testament, guy that writes what we know as the Proverbs, he says this. He says, consider well, watch carefully the path of your feet. And this is what I want us to be thinking about today, this whole idea of every decision we make, we're either moving closer and closer to the future you that you want to be, or you're moving further and further away from the future you that you want to be. And listen, you understand this, but I'm gonna kind of say it anyway. Our intentions, as good as our intentions are, they don't determine our destination. It's our decisions every single day. It's our decisions that actually determine where we end up. And, we get this. I mean, we see this in every aspect of life. In fact, if you were to, drive down to the, Indianapolis area, there's an interstate that runs right through the center of town. It's called I-65. And, if you're like, you know what, the future me, the future me is supposed to be in Miami right now. All right, I need to head south to go to Miami. The future me, the beach is calling. I'm supposed to be in South Beach. That's the place I feel like I'm supposed to be. I'm going to, take some rest underneath the sun. And, you can tell your friends, hey, I feel like I'm supposed to go to Miami. I'm going to Miami. You can pray, hey, God, help me to get to Miami. But when you get to I-65, if you make a choice to go north instead of south, you're going to end up in a place called Chicago. And let me tell you, it is not anything close to Miami, all right, in any way, shape, or form. And we get this, right? Because we know the decisions we make actually lead us in a certain direction and even to the destination that our lives end up in. And so today, we're just going to get real practical and hopefully inspirational on how do I get to where I want to be. And I'm going to share some stuff with you from a guy named Sean Johnson and Craig Groeschel, some great spiritual leadership guys. We're going to look at some stuff from a book called Atomic Habits, a guy by the name of James Clear that gives just some great pathways. And I highly recommend this book if you haven't read it. And so here we go. You guys ready to get after it? First thing we have to look at? Yeah, all right. Yes, awesome. So you might even want to write this down or take a screenshot of this. I usually don't say that, but this is like that impactful. It's been impactful for me. The first thing we have to do is we have to start small. We have to start small. I want to help you devise a plan where you can actually see that some of the things you want to become and God is shaping to, you can actually get there. But you have to start small, and you can begin moving today on that destination toward the future you. And, perhaps you're like me. I tend to just go like all out whenever I commit to something. And sometimes it proves to be counterproductive. If I say, I want to get healthy, I want to get healthier, I'll do something like, I'll go, man, I'm going to eat vegetables for the rest of my life. and I'll do that for like 3 or 4 days. And then all of a sudden I'll hit a wall. And I'll be like, man, this sucks. I feel horrible. I don't feel like I have energy. I've not gotten across, to the positive side of that decision. And I just bail on it. And all of a sudden, I'll down like 2 Chick-fil-A sandwiches and a whole box of like Little Debbie cakes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like you just go all in and you're like, I just failed. And part of the reason why is because I start too big. In fact, here's what James Clear says in Atomic Habits. He says, every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. Last weekend we looked at the new identity that God gives us when we take a step to begin a relationship, begin following Jesus. There's a brand new identity that comes, and we begin to live out of that. And Clear goes on, he says, this is one of the reasons why meaningful change doesn't always require radical change. Small habits can make meaningful difference by providing evidence of the new identity. And if a change is meaningful, it is actually big, like B-I-G, big. That's the paradox of making small improvements. And this is brilliant right here. I mean, what he's basically saying, is if you say, okay, the future me wants to be more in shape, and perhaps you've been sitting on the couch for like the last 3 years, probably the worst thing you could do is go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go sign up for the Indianapolis 500 Festival mini marathon in like 2 weeks. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go big. Don't start there, all right? Don't start there. Maybe start with like random lunches. If I want to get healthier, instead of like, when I'm in a rush going through, the McDonald's drive-thru with a Big Mac and fries and supersizing it all, maybe start, choose a salad. Maybe start small. Instead of, going for the marathon or the mini marathon, maybe just start with like 10 push-ups a day. All right? Why is it that we often think, man, if I'm going to make impact, I have to go big. I could do 100 push-ups today. Just start with 10. And I know some of you are going, Curt, I don't even know if I could do 10. All right, we'll start with 5. All right, just do 5. And you might be going, well, Curt, I don't know that I could even do 5. Well, then, do a knee push-up. Do 1 knee push-up. All right? You might be thinking, well, I don't even know how to do that. So just lay on the floor and work on getting up one time, all right? Let's just start right there. Let's just go right down to the basics. Start small and see what begins to happen, all right? There's a power in starting small. In fact, I want us to get a little more encouragement and motivation from, this is a younger, by the way, Nate Bargatze right here. Take a look at this.
I got to get in shape, not this shape. It's not a good shape. Something I got to get really. I thought I was like, I'm doing an hour special. That'll motivate me, and here we are. I tell people I got to get back in shape. I've never been in shape. Like most people, like if I can get back to my 20s, I would have to go back to 7. If I could get back to when I was 7, I was just killing it. I don't know how to work out. For me, a good workout would be walking to McDonald's would be a great start. You know, maybe stand up and eat it, see if that does something. I ordered the P90X videos. I thought I could do that. Never worked out a day in my life, so let's do what the Navy SEALs do. You know why I ordered it? Because in the commercial, you know they have like a before body and after body? And I was blown away by the before body. I thought that's what you get to look like. I was like, that guy looks great, you know? I would love to look like him. Then I saw the after body. I was like, does the before body guy have a DVD? Because that guy seems more my speed, you know? What did he do to get to that? And I'll just do that.
You guys not enjoy Nate? Come on. I mean, he is, I mean, I think it's like so real, right? We're like, we can all get that. Start small. Just start small. I read an article recently about a guy who, get this, lost 100 pounds going to the gym for 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day. And some of you are like, okay, how do I get on that plan right there? Well, here's kind of how it happened. He was talking to his therapist, and his therapist said to him, hey, I know you want to get healthier. I know you want to lose weight. Your problem is you set these huge, big, lofty goals, and you can't stick with them. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to the gym starting tomorrow for 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes, no longer. Don't do 6 minutes. Just 5 minutes and then go home. In those 5 minutes, do whatever you want. I mean, pick up something, jump on a treadmill, sit in the sauna for 5 minutes if you want. I mean, whatever. Just 5 minutes. And of course, this guy's going, yeah, that sounds stupid. I'm going to go for 5 minutes. I'm barely going to break a sweat. And then I'm going to be like, well, it's time to go home. He's like, who wants to do that? But see, here's what began to happen over time. Over time, what began to happen is he began to become a person who goes to the gym. And 5 minutes turned into 10 minutes, and 10 minutes turned into 15 minutes. And before long, he was feeling more comfortable, and he wasn't intimidated by some of the machines. And he began to feel like, all these people who feel like they grew up here and they just kind of know the routine. He's like, I kind of know the routine. His confidence began to grow. And he got over his pride. And all of a sudden, he's like, yeah, I'm doing this. And all of a sudden, those small little steps, 5 minutes over time with compound interest, all of a sudden, that became like a massive change. That's 100 pounds. Because, see, small decisions actually have the ability to create some pretty big impact. One of my hopes, for this series is that some of us might be going, gosh, I at the top of my list is I just want to get closer to God. I want to get closer to God. I want to wake up every single day with the confidence that God is with me and that, regardless of what I face, He sees me, He hears me, He knows what I'm going through. I want to have that kind of confidence. I want to help other people see that that's the kind of God that I have the chance to connect with. I want to help other people experience Him. And if that's where you are, I just say the same thing, start small. So many times we say, well, man, if I want to grow, I gotta do something big. I gotta, read the Bible in a year. Get on a read the Bible in a year plan, where I'm reading like 2 or 3 chapters out of, the Old Testament and Genesis, and then I'm reading a Psalm and a proverb, and, I just got to do it all. And like, you could do that, but it's like, when you do that, you might, if you start in Genesis, you might be entertained, because you got like naked people running around the garden, and then you got like brothers trying to kill each other, and then you got, some other brothers trying to kill their youngest brother. It's like TV drama made live, like right in the first book of the Old Testament. And then when you get to like Exodus, you might like go through that, because that's the whole like Charlton Heston, like, let my people go, moment. And so like, that's got some cool moments. But like, you get to the third book, man, it's like Leviticus, and it's like, kill me now. All right, it's like all the Old Testament laws, and you're like, none of this even pertains, half of it doesn't pertain to us today. And you might get like, a few days in, or even, a month, and then you miss a day, and you just want to bag it. You're just like, I'm out. How many of us, and you don't have to raise your hand, but like, how many of us have ever started a reading plan? I'm going to read the whole Bible or a whole book in 1 month, and you start and you get like 4 or 5 days in, and everybody else is on like day 20 already, and you've missed a bunch of days, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh gosh, this just reminds you of everything else I couldn't finish, and all of a sudden you're like, yep, God's probably mad at me. God's like giving up on me. I can't do anything. No, just start small. Start small. Perhaps it's just like reading 1 verse a day, 1 verse. Maybe 1 paragraph, something small, something easy. Back when I did student ministry, working with students 7th through 12th grade in the early part of my ministry, we had this fantastic Bible we'd give students. We gave every student one. It's called the 1 Minute Bible for Students. I mean, it's fantastic. It's still available. I mean, if you want it for one of your kids, or you might even want to try it out, you can scan that. It'll take you to where you can purchase it. It was fantastic. It was like you'd read for 1 minute of some scripture and then a 1 minute devotional. So that's 2 minutes a day. And these students, these students who were like trying to grow in understanding God, they would do it because it was bite-sized chunks for them. And I'll never forget a conversation with a parent one time who, kind of approached me and said, "Hey, Curt, I get the idea and I like the heart behind this, but come on, seriously, aren't we like underselling our belief in our students? Don't we really think they could do like more than like a minute a day? I mean, isn't that like setting a really low bar?" I'm like, "Well, I don't know, call me stupid. I think it's pretty cool because they're actually doing it. They're doing it. They see that it works, it doesn't take real long." And they say, "Yeah, but I mean, I just felt like we should be expecting more out of our students." I said, "Well, perhaps." And so I just thought, I'm going to turn that around to you. And I said, "Well, how many minutes did you read in your Bible today?" "Oh, well, I mean, today wasn't a good day to do that." Well, okay, let's talk about yesterday. How was yesterday? "Well, I mean, yesterday was a little rough, as well." "Well, just give me a total on the week." "Well, I mean, it just wasn't a good week." I'm like, "Well, listen, I think students reading 1 minute a day is better than you thinking I got to do this big job and I never do it because I just don't have time for it." See, listen, I'm not telling you to start small because some guy, that wrote a book called Atomic Habits says, "Hey, this is a good idea." I'm telling you this because this is actually what God champions as well. In fact, take a look at what the prophet Zechariah says. He says, "Do not despise small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices when he sees the work begin." Some of you are going, "Man, I want to get closer to God." Start with a verse a day. Start with just reading a paragraph to learn about his character. And you know what happens when you do that? I mean, God's up there watching you in heaven. He's like saying to everybody, hey, come around, look at this, look. Hey, let's throw a party. Look at her go. Look at him go. They're actually doing something they're going to stick with. Way to go. They throw a party because you're going somewhere. Start small. It's amazing what small little changes can actually lead to some pretty big outcomes. So the second thing is we have to schedule it. We have to schedule it. In fact, Proverbs chapter 21, this writer of wisdom says good planning, that's the scheduling part, and hard work, you have to be a little bit of grit, a little bit of effort into this, lead to, and look at this word right here, prosperity. You know what prosperity is? Prosperity is like good things. Prosperity is this idea of growth, this idea of thriving. I think that's something every single one of us wants. And we know how this works, right? I mean, if we don't get it on our calendar, it just doesn't happen. It's why for some of us, you've been talking about getting together with this one couple, going out to dinner for like 6 months. Hasn't happened yet because you've not put it on the calendar. It's why for some of us, we've talked about starting this workout plan and, you've been talking about for the last year and you've never taken it out of the realm of good intention to where you actually like put it on your calendar. It's why some of us, we have all these good intentions, but oh my gosh, I want to spend time with God. I want to grow more and more, in understanding him. And yeah, it's a good intention. It's just that we haven't put it on a schedule. We haven't, built it into our life. And so this is so crazy. In the book Atomic Habits, they talk about this research project that happened in Great Britain a few years ago, but with 248 people who said, "Hey, I want to get better in my health. I want to have better exercise habits." And so they split these 248 people up into 3 different cohorts, 3 different groups. And the first group was called the control group. And they said to this group, "Hey, we just want you to go out, exercise this week, record it, write it down. We'll circle back around at the end of the study. We want to see how you did. Ready, set, go. You guys got this." And then they got the second group together and basically said kind of the same thing. "We want you to go and just exercise, record, what you do each time you exercise. But we're also going to give you some motivation. We're going to give you a few things to read, some things that help you see the benefits of what you're doing and why you're exercising and how it's going to help you live longer and all the things that come, beneficially with exercise. So, just record things, be motivated, and we're going to circle back around, all right? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go." But this third group was what I'm going to call the schedule group. In this group, they got the same presentation as the first 2 groups, but they also, after they were said, record your exercise, and then here's some motivation, here's all the health benefits. They also were given this sentence right here to finish before they left their kind of little, orientation. And again, you might want to screenshot this. This was so powerful. It was this sentence right here. "During the next week, I will partake in at least 20 minutes of vigorous exercise on this day, at this time, and in this place." They said, before you leave, before you go, we want you to record what you do, but before you go, before you walk out right now, just fill in these gaps right here. What day, what time, what place are you going to do this? All right, and then record what you do. I'm telling you what, when they circled back around and began to get the results from this research, I mean, the results were staggering. So the first group, they said, hey, just go exercise, record what you do. Their execution of exercising at some point during the week was 35%. 35% of the people in that group exercised. The second group, who had all this motivation and, hey, record it, but here's all the positive benefits, about the same number. 35% of that group actually exercised at least one time that week. But the third group, who were told, hey, pick the day, the time, the place we're going to do this. This is amazing. Look at this. 91% of that group actually exercise one time over the next weeks. Because there's something powerful about scheduling and making a plan and saying, hey, here's what I'm going to do. What if this all started tomorrow? What if tomorrow we just said, I'm going to schedule my day. I'm going to start my day at 6:30, get my alarm, set my alarm 6:30. I'm going to pop up, have coffee going, go down, make coffee at 6:35, do 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups perhaps, while I'm waiting for my coffee. As soon as it's done, I'll go sit in a chair, talk to God for a couple minutes, maybe read a verse. By 6:50, man, I'm up getting showered and I am on with my day, and you might have just started your day in an entirely different trajectory that's going to affect the future you, simply by just scheduling it. So we start small, and then we schedule it, and then here's the third thing. We have to stick with it. We have to stick with it. Craig Groeschel, he says this. He says, successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. Successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. Meaning, if you find somebody who's financially successful, you're going to find that in their rhythm and in their routine, you're going to be guaranteed to find there are some good decisions that they have made consistently over time. If you find somebody with a strong faith, you're going to find that person, they have some things that they have constantly made decisions on, over time that have got them to where they are. The other people, they might do some of those things, but they just do that occasionally. If you find somebody that's just generally successful, whatever it might be in their life, you're going to find somebody who's made some really, really good decisions consistently over time. And you're going to find that those things have led them to where they are. It's not a mystery. In fact, the Apostle Paul talks about this. The Apostle Paul in the New Testament part of the Bible, who, he's kind of like really big on helping new Christians, people who are trying to grow in their faith. He writes more than half of the New Testament, and he tries to help us understand, okay, this is what it looks like to follow Jesus. This is what it means to live out your faith, to get traction and do the small things that lead to bigger things. And here's what he writes to this group of new Christians in this city called Galatia back in the first century. He says, let us not become weary of doing good. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if, and then look at what he says at the end of this, if we do not give up. He says, if you don't give up. He says, if you stick with it. If you just stick with it, man, if you do the small things, if you'll schedule those small things, make them in bite-sized chunks, and then you'll just work those things. Don't give up on those things. There's going to come a point in your life where you're going to look back and you're going to go, oh my God, look, way back here, I was doing all these little things, and I didn't feel like they were making a difference, but look at what this has created in my life right here. All these things have created some pretty massive changes. Now, I want to give you a few visuals of how this works, all right? And some of these come from, the book Atomic Habits. Some of them are just mine. Some of them are examples I've seen, all right? Of just like how little changes actually over time lead to pretty big results. And the reason I'm doing this is not so you can just say, hey, I got to do this one or that one. You might choose to do that. But really, I hope this ignites ideas in your life, things God's putting in your heart that you're saying, hey, if I start small, over time, I can actually create some pretty big progress. All right, I can turn this into some pretty big results. So here's the first one. Let's just say, for instance, you're like, yes, the future you does want to have better health in the future. All right, I want to get healthier. I want to be around for a long time. I want to be around for my family. I want to live for a while. I want to, bless my family. And so I'm going to do that thing. I'm going to do 10 push-ups a day. I'm going to do 10 sit-ups a day. All right, I'm going to do that salad thing, one salad a day. Instead of going for the Big Mac, I'll do the one salad, all right? And over time, you might increase it. But let's just say, for practical purposes, for the next 2 years, you do this. all right? And you just walk out 10 sit-ups, 10 push-ups, 1 salad. Now, here's what's crazy. Let's just give a little room for a margin for error. Let's say 25% of the time you don't do this, all right? So 25% of the time you don't execute this, but the rest of the time you do. Check this out. At the end of 2 years, take a look at what you've done. You've actually done 5,400 plus push-ups, 5,400 sit-ups, and 548 salads. I mean, just by a small change, do you not think that's going to have some impact on your overall health and well-being? I mean, it's crazy. How about this one right here? This one gets a little personal for me. Because this is something I started doing over the last couple of years. I found that I was not as grateful as I wanted to be. I found that I was just not I didn't have a heart of gratitude. It's really affecting me. So I began to create something called a gratitude list. I said, I want more gratitude. And so, 3 days a week, I would begin to just write down 10 things that I was thankful for. And then I'd write a 1 sentence, to God, thank you, God, for this, or whatever it is, my family, or this experience, or how you came through, whatever it might be. And just whatever I was seeing, whatever I was experiencing that particular day. And I'll be honest, some days I didn't feel like it. Some days I felt just like I was in the blahs, and I just couldn't see past my nose, and yet I still do it. I just say, oh, God, here's what I'm thankful for today. And 3 days a week, if you were to just implement this, I do it usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday's my day off, Friday. And, if 3 days a week you did this, but a margin error, maybe 25% of days, you don't write something down. Look at what kind of impact you can have over the course of 2 years. You would actually write 234 entries of gratitude with over 2,300 items that you are thankful for. You're going, oh my gosh, God, thank you for this. Do you not think your heart would be filled with gratitude? You go, oh my gosh, God, thank you for all the goodness you bring into my life. We talk a lot around here about being generous, about, being generous with our finances. And of course, we just came off a new initiative, which, many of us are super excited to be a part of just fueling what God is doing. And, and there's a whole bunch of us that are just excited about that. And some of us, many of us were like, I want to be known as being generous. I want people to look at me and go, man, that's a person right there with their life. I mean, not just with their time, but with their finances. Man, they're fueling what God is doing. They are helping heaven be more crowded eventually because they're helping people find their way to God. They're fueling what God is doing. All right, they're making a difference with their resources. That's just who they are. That's part of their identity. And I know for some of us, we want that. We want to have that identity. We want to be seen that way, but we've just never got around to tithing or, percentage giving or giving in any way, shape, or form. And what if you just stopped talking about it? What if you stopped saying, well, eventually when I get to a certain place, or someday I hope I can be generous. I want to be generous, but someday I hope I can start. What if you just scheduled it? What if you just went to the CrossPoint website, to the Give button or the CrossPoint app and hit Give and said, I'm going to, the next paycheck that I have coming in, I'm just going to begin tithing. 10%, God says 10%, I'm just going to give that, return that to God, and I'm going to automate it, and I'm going to do that, and for a couple months, you might go, I just don't know if it's doing much for me, but I feel good about the fact that I'm being generous with God, but you may not even feel it financially, I don't know. But you're going to be able to test one of the things the prophet Malachi actually invites us to test God on. One of the only times you're invited to test God. He says, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. And he says, test me on this. Test me on this. See if I'll not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing into your life, there's not going to be enough room to store it. I can't tell you how many people over the 15, 16 years of CrossPoint have taken this seriously and said, man, there's just getting a point where I'm like, okay, it's time for me to just stop talking about it, do it. I'm going to schedule this. I'm going to start tithing. And 2-3 years later, they're going, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I just started, and I'm looking back now, and I can't believe the blessings, the ways God has provided for me. It's amazing. I know some of us, you're sitting here going, Curt, I don't know that I could do that. I just don't understand my financial situation. And, I don't know that I could tithe 10% if I wanted to. I don't know if I could do 5%. No problem. Let's just go back a bit to where we started a few minutes ago. What if you start small? All right, what if you go to the app, to the CrossPoint website, the Give button, and you set up a recurring giving for, say, 2%. Average income in Hamilton County, 2% of that would be about $30 a week or $60 every 2 weeks. And you said, okay, I'm just going to automate that. I'm going to start at 2% and just see, I'm going to start small. And do you know what's going to happen over those 2 years? You're going to have over 50 times you're going to go, oh my gosh, I'm building into the kingdom. Look at what that's going to total. You might go, man, I don't know if I'm making a difference. I don't know if it's doing anything. You're going to give over $3,000 into fueling, helping people find their way to God, helping heaven be more crowded when we all eventually get there, all because you started small. And no longer are you going, man, I hope one day I can be generous. I hope I can be known as somebody who's generous. No, you just took the step to start it. You are now. That's your identity. See, when we start small, it begins to change things. Let's talk about relationships for just a moment. If you're married, you probably have said at some point, man, I want to be a better spouse, better husband, better wife. I want a better marriage. I don't even know where to start, but that's what I want. And let me get real personal on this. What if I prayed for my wife, Julie, every single morning for 2 minutes? Just 2 minutes. Hey, God, I know, what's going on. Julie's, facing today, some of the decisions she's making, the people she's, trying to coach, work with. Just guide her in that. God, will you help her as she's trying to be a great mom and a working mom to be able to balance that tension? I know there's a lot of tension in that. God, her hopes, her dreams, the things she's trying to work toward. Will you just just kind of help encourage her in this today? Just 2 minutes a morning. And then we have this little thing that we do when we leave where give her a kiss and we say, I love you. But what if it went just a little bit beyond I love you to I love you because. Not just I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. But it's like I love you because you know what? You have been so graceful with me over the past few weeks. I love you because of that. I love you because of the way you build into our kids. Let me just tell you, thank you. I love you because of that. I mean, just little bitty things. Don't even take much, maybe a minute. So you got 2 minutes of praying and a minute extra of saying, I love you because. And you may not even feel that much different, but look at this. If you miss 25% of the days over 2 years, this is what happens over 2 years, though. You've just prayed for your spouse 548 times. You've just said, I love you because 548 times. I mean, do you not think your marriage would be in an entirely different place if you did this, 75% of the time over the next 2 years? I mean, it's hard to stay angry with someone who you are praying for that frequently. It's hard to be bitter towards someone, that you're praying for. Hey, I want you to be with them today. I want their plans, their hopes, their dreams. Man, God, would you just encourage them in that? I mean, that's amazing. Last one. Let me give you one more here. Perhaps the most important one, because I hope some of us, we're at the place of saying, God, I just want to be closer to you. I want to be closer to you, God. And God's invisible, and I don't even know how I'm supposed to connect with him. And, I've got all these issues and problems that, here in my life. I don't even know how this works. But what if you just said, God, I want to be closer to you. And so I'm going to spend 2 minutes every morning just talking to you, just sharing a bit about what's going on in my life. I'm gonna maybe spend a minute, reading a verse of the day. I'm gonna do that for a few weeks. I may not feel a lot over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but it's obviously gonna give me some insights. But I tell you what, you begin to do that for 2 years, even if you miss, again, room for error here. You miss 25% of the days. If you do that, look at this. Over 2 years, you've just spent 548 conversations with the creator of the universe. 548 conversations, saying, hey, God, here's what's going on in my life. Can you help me today? 548 verses being read. I mean, think about the intimacy you probably would begin to develop just by something very small. See, it starts with just tiny little decisions. If I take a look at the prophet Jeremiah, he says, when you come looking for me, you'll find me. Yes, when you get serious about finding me and you want it more than anything else, I'll make sure you won't be disappointed. I'll turn things around for you. He says these little small things actually over time accumulate, and you can count on it. You can count on it. This past week, I was sitting reflecting on some things with my wife, just kind of thinking back to where did I start some of these small things that began very, very, very small little steps for me? And it took me back to when I was in my teenage years, 15, 16 years old. And when I was 15, I was had a shoulder injury, and it created, canceled the rest of my sports season that year. Sports were life for me, and so I had to deal with that adversity and have a shoulder surgery and, rehab and kind of deal with that. And then, I turned 16 in my 16th year. Lost one of my best friends who was the captain of our football team, and he was starting quarterback as a sophomore. Our basketball team, our baseball team, died in a car accident. I mean, had to deal with the grief and just, processing through that. And then, a year later, I ended up with another shoulder injury that resulted in a surgery, pretty much ended my sports career. I mean, it kind of, ended any hopes of that in college. And man, that season was a dark season. It took a lot of soul searching. And I realized I got really serious in that time where I began some of these small things. I mean, reading a verse a day. Just praying for a little bit of time before I went to school. It was one of the first times I gave a message to a group of people. I was the captain of the basketball team my junior year, and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes group said, "Hey, would you come speak to our group of athletes?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I thought I gave like a 30-minute message. It ended up being like 2.5 minutes. I mean, that's how it just shows you. I mean, I thought it was really big, but it was just a small little message. It was one of the first times I told my story of faith, and all these itty-bitty little decisions that 34 years later have turned into like some of these things that have been massive things to get me through massive seasons, over the last few years. Compound interest over time. So powerful. Here's what C.S. Lewis says about this. He says, good and evil both increase compound interest. That is why little decisions you and I make every day are of such infinite importance. The smallest good act today is the capture of a strategic point from which a few months later, you may be able to go on to victories you never dreamed possible. I mean, this is why God says, don't despise the small beginnings. Don't despise the small beginnings. Our production team, they created these dominoes this week. Doesn't this look amazing up here? These dominoes are like life-size dominoes, and they've been working on this week. And you know what the crazy thing? This is a beautiful image of compound interest right here. And there's 10 of these, including the one I have in my hand, 10 dominoes right here. If this would extrapolate on, for 14 more dominoes out, if we would have built 14 more past this in one right here, do you realize how tall this would be? That one would be the height of the Empire State Building. That's how much over time compounded interest increases. Now, I want us to think about this for a moment. I mean, if this little domino, this normal plain-sized domino, if this is the future you right here, all right, this is the future you, and you say, you know what, I'm going to do some small steps. I mean, I want to be a healthier me. I want to have some six-pack, man. I'm going to start working out this week. I'm going to start doing sit-ups, push-ups. I'm going to do it for 1 week and see if that really gets me to where I want to be. Oh my gosh, it does nothing. It does nothing. If you say, hey, this is the future, you right here, and I want to, grow in, being generous. I want to be known for being generous. And so this month, I'm going to start percentage giving. I'm going to try it for 2 times, and I'm going to see, what that does and see what kind of walls that knocks down. Again, it does nothing. I mean, it has no impact because it's so small. If you say, well, gosh, God, I want to get closer to you, and so I'm going to start this week. I'm going to start praying a couple minutes a day. I'm going to start reading. I'm going to see how I'm doing at the end of the week and see if I want to continue on, see if I feel anything, if I got to where I want to be. I'm going to tell you, if you do it for like 7-8 days and you say, I want to have a big faith, it does not have the momentum, the energy to actually really do anything. But see, here's what's crazy. This is where God says, don't despise small beginnings. Because all it takes is a small step. I mean, all it takes is a small step. He says, hey, I want you to come, and I want you to just come, spend some time with me. And as you kind of schedule that into your life, and as you do small things, I mean, the things I'm putting on your heart, just know that over time, I mean, as you repetitively do those over time, and you stick with those actually have the ability to knock down some pretty big things. Check this out. Watch this. Oh! Whoa, how about that? Whoa, that is amazing. All right, hey, let's go ahead and stand to our feet. I want to pray for us. Right now. God, I just want to thank you for having plans and purposes for our lives. And I know some of us, we're in here, we feel like we've got some pretty big walls that we're facing right now, some pretty big giants. Man, God, I just pray that you would help remind us that you are a God who carries our anxieties. You're a God who can take on our worries, who can break things that are holding us down. God, I just pray that you can bring a healing to wherever there's illness. God, I pray that you would carry our depressions, God. Some of us, we just feel like we got some massive walls, and you have the ability. Just encourage us. I pray that you inspire our hearts today, God, to see that when we do the small things, they can actually lead to big things. God, perhaps the very first domino that needs to fall for some of us right now is just taking the step of faith to trust you, Jesus, as our Savior. And that's the very first one. We just never taken that step. And it seems like a small step, but that small step over time leads to some pretty big change. And so if there's any of us right now that just are like, yeah, man, I've just never taken that step. I want to take that step. I'm feeling that in my heart. I want to have the kind of God that sees me and knows me. And I know Jesus, he died for me. I want to receive what he has in store for me. You can just say yes to that right now. That can be the first domino that falls and that identity changes. And you need to know that there's something that's going to begin in you that will never, never stop. And so, God, I just pray that you build us right now. Whatever we've got on our minds that we need to get after this week, build our confidence that the small steps we're taking can actually accomplish some pretty big things over time. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for doing this kind of work in us. We pray these things in your character. Amen.